welcome to another edition of Cognitive Dissidence. Maybe we can call it the summer edition of Cognitive Dissidence. This is Hrvoje Moric from Geopolitics and Empire.
I'm Monica Perez from The Monica Perez Show.
And I'm Parallel Mike of the Parallel Systems Broadcast.
For people maybe who are not aware, on some platforms, I did not notify people, primarily through my Substack, which if you haven't signed up to my Substack email list, I don't know why you haven't, but people who listen to solely through YouTube or Apple or Spotify are like, where's Hrvoje gone? And since mid-June, I have been lost in Dalmatia and the Adriatic Sea in Croatia. No internet, pretty much off-grid. And just taking a 3-month unprecedented break. But don't worry, in about a month's time, I will be back restarting Geopolitics and Empire podcast, hitting the ground running. So I've been doing a bit of R&R. So that's where I've been at. What about you guys?
Well, your level of relaxation is like palpable. Your little flowered shirt and just your tan. And it's like Hrvoje, this is the real Hrvoje underneath the world's gonna end thing. And I like it. See, you get away from the screens, you have no internet, and your health improves. But I've been traveling around, also very different feeling from that. Still lots of fun. I went to this all-day heavy metal concert in Birmingham where it was Ozzy's last show. He died 2 weeks after that. It was a really great experience. I might have been the only female there, I'm not sure. But it was really, really fun. And then I just popped around UK a little bit and I discovered that outside of London, England is still there, is still back behind them. Maybe Mike can confirm or deny. And I did a little other traveling, but nothing as exotic or relaxing as Hrvoje's.
Yeah, it was really strange to hear you talking about the places, because those are the places I used to live. I think you actually went to the place my wife used to work as well, maybe to see it. So that was pretty cool.
It was fantastic.
And, I was missing it as you were saying it. I was like, I need to go back. But yeah, England's beautiful, especially the north. Most people, when they travel, they go to London. London's a shithole. I wouldn't advise going there. Go to the north, go meet some Yorkshire people. That's actually where I'm from. You thought I was from Birmingham, right? You was all excited. You was off to my hometown. I was like, Birmingham?
Sorry. I mean, only because of your criminal background. I didn't...
My criminal, not my background.
I'm just kidding. But yes, I did think, but now obviously you're from York and York is lovely. It's so lovely. I don't want to tell people because I don't want them to ruin it.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah. And so that was cool to hear about that. And I can't believe you was one of the last people alive to see Ozzy Osbourne play. That's pretty cool.
And in the end, it was funny because I thought it had 40,000 people, pretty young people, relatively young, just cheering and happy for him. He could not get up. He couldn't even stand up. He did some singing, which was good. But I knew, like with those drugs, when you really pump people full of those drugs in the last stages, it can take some time off your life. But I thought, he's like, I just want to tell you something. And I really thought he was going to say, like, I love you. I can feel this love. I want, pray for me or whatever. And he said, I really want to thank you guys for enabling our lifestyle for all these years.
Wow.
It's like, first of all, it's killing you. But second of all, like, thanks for the money, guys. I'm like, you have 40,000 people who love you in your last moment. You're practically on your deathbed. But, it was real. And I have heard those other people, other rock stars say, like Billy Idol said it, Roger Daltrey, like, the money's been awesome. It's like, okay.
But I personally fear, Dan Dix of Press for Truth made this sharp, poignant comment as well, that I fear where Ozzy is right now.
Yes, here's the thing,
to get a little metaphysical,
Here's the thing. His crosses are right side up now. I think he saw the light, but I did think that until he did not ask for prayers. I was surprised. Yeah, so I would just say anyone can be redeemed in the final moments. He had plenty of opportunity to reflect on his previous behavior. We have purgatory, so you get to rot in purgatory for 10 trillion years and still get out. So maybe he's just doing that.
Yeah. Well, it would be fitting, if he spent a bit of time there. He'd probably enjoy it for a little
Yeah,
while.
a little. Yeah, he probably knows a lot of people.
Yeah. The old crowd. But yeah, basically my summer's been way more boring than yours too. So I'm very jealous of both of your holidays and trips. Yeah, I spent it on the farm, farming. And I think I'm the only person who didn't get a tan this year because it's rained almost every day. I've got a microclimate where we live, so the weather's been atrocious. But I have had some cool experiences. I've been traveling out to meet communities actually. So these are kind of off-grid communities that they homeschool, they have massive growing areas, they're kind of semi out the system, giving birth on the land, just really interesting characters. So I've traveled to see 3 communities this year. And I found out, bizarrely, there's one about 20 minutes away from me. So bearing in mind, I chose to live in the middle of nowhere in the forest. And then I found out, because there's so much forest, there's like a secret community just over there. So we went to check
The
those guys
children are
out.
wearing like leaves for clothes and stuff.
Well,
Almost.
they're close. They're close. It was linen. Lots of
It was
linen,
like
lots of dancing, interesting people, really knowledgeable actually when it comes to like natural medicine, folk medicine. So lots of information, and they were very useful as well because we had our old stove. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these big old Russian Soviet type stoves. They're like 10 tons. Well, we got one of them and it sprung a leak and nobody has the expertise anymore. But this community knows everyone and anyone. So within a minute, they'd sent us a message, call up this guy. And he was at our house fixing it. So anyways, yeah, mine was pretty standard. But also, we always make the most of our summers over here. And it was good fun. But I'm excited to be back on Cognitive Dissonance too. It's been a little while.
All right. Yeah, this is rare. Like I said, I've been on the island with no internet, and this is a miracle, this internet that I have now. I don't even know if it's going to cut out, but I'll just add that where I am, Max Egan is likely going to be in town. I met him last year, I think, at Acapulco. So I might be recording podcast with him. And I've been meeting a lot of the top Croatian intellectuals and anti-globalist dissidents, and I'll possibly be recording Geopolitics and Empire podcasts with them. Some in English, maybe, and some you might hear for your first ever Geopolitics and Empire podcast interview in Croatian. But I'll be translating that into English subtitles. So that'll be we've had English, Spanish, and possibly Croatian. So yeah, that's it for me. And I guess
that's super cool because you can get like the deeper you go into other countries, the more real truth you get. Like you can read RT and maybe get a different side of a story. And then you can read a Croatian newspaper and get a little bit deeper. But then you can talk to somebody eye to eye. So I'm super excited for that. I really want to read that.
That'll be.
I'll have to read it. I can't listen to it, right? So
yeah, that'll be interesting. Unless it's AI audio dub, I'll figure that stuff out.
I'm afraid that's where you're going to go with this.
Well, I'm still waiting to get the AI audio so I can steal back my content from the Mexicans who stole my show.
We won't say who they are.
They just take my show and just speak over it in Mexican, and they've been
doing
it. They've got about triple the subscribers I've got. It's insane. So
lawlessness.
Steal it back off them.
Well, to turn to brighter topics, the Trumpian police state.
Oh my gosh!
Let me share my screen here. The latest from John Whitehead of Rutherford Institute. He's been on my show, published just today. And he basically every week he runs his column and he just summarizes what's on my mind. He says the police state has a new playbook, martial law, one city at a time. And I highlighted, here's really the money shot. What is unfolding in the nation's capital is a hostile takeover of our constitutional republic. This is no longer about partisan politics, wag the dog distractions from the Epstein debacle, or even genuine national security concerns. This is martial law disguised as law and order, the oldest trick in the authoritarian playbook. We've been traveling this slippery slope toward a police state for some time, but under Trump 2.0, the descent towards outright tyranny is accelerating. And basically what he's citing here, I don't know what you guys thought, but when I heard like yesterday or the day before that Trump is going to federalize the police force, I'm like, I mean, we talked about this last time. Did we take off your MAGA red hat? Like, come on. This is literally It's just the continuation of what was previously under Biden and Obama and Bush and Clinton. So I think we can all agree that the deep state is uniparty, and it's really showing now under Trump 2.0 that he's just continuing the deep state project, the New World Order, and so forth. And so, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I heard him say this about the National Guard, so what he's doing is he called up the National Guard in DC in response to one or two crimes that got a lot of press, one of which might not even have been real because it was a guy from Doge. So some of that can, who knows what. But crime, this is very commonly reported right now that crime in DC is not at an all-time high. It's actually at a 30-year low. It's down since 2023, so it's both long-term and recent. So here you have him really not having a crisis, but asserting that he has a crisis and bringing in the National Guard to do policing. And there are a couple of things wrong with that. One is that the police powers, which covers a lot, like health regulation and everything, they're called the police powers, has been numerous times adjudicated as under the 9th and 10th Amendments being in the purview of the states. So there's no really federal crimes. And those guys, so he can't do that. They shouldn't be doing, the government shouldn't be policing stuff. And the feds should not do policing, but also military should not be doing policing. It's posse comitatus, and you can't have the military enforcing laws against U.S. citizens. So what he's been doing is testing the waters on different arguments that could go around that. Like in LA, he was saying we're only on federal property, and in any case, it's only used against non-citizens. Now, DC is a special circumstance because it's not a state. There is congressional oversight of the city. The president has the right to declare an emergency, which kind of emerged from Vietnam and whatever, because DC is in a unique position to attract protesters from the entire country. So they would be in a unique position to need bigger guns than what you would need to just suppress internal local crime. But that's not how he's using it. So I think he does that stuff on purpose. And then he wants to see how far he can push it. And the mayor says, I don't think he has the right to do this, but we're going to cooperate so it doesn't get messy. So you have immediate capitulation. And, there's a lot of other things coming from there. But what were your guys' impression when you heard this?
My first question was why? Like, I've not heard of anything that seems to justify it. They didn't even bother to do like a January 6th or something. So they've gotten lazy. And then I tried to look back through history. I was like, is there a precedent for this? And I found some stuff about, the Martin Luther King riots and May Day protests with Nixon. But it seems to me like those things were much bigger and potentially could have justified some kind of response. But yeah, maybe you've got more to add to that, Monica or Roy. How are they trying to justify this as necessary?
I think you just you explained it yourself. They're not trying anymore. I think they're behind schedule. We've talked about this before. So they're really accelerating, not just in the US, but globally. We've talked previously. Seems like they're behind schedule in the North American unions. So they put Trump up there on stage. And he's like, yeah, we're just going to grab Greenland and Canada and Panama. It's like, bada bing, bada boom, got to go. And the same thing with the Eurasian Union and the other unions. And so I think they're just behind schedule. They don't care anymore. The system is maybe falling apart as well financially. So many things are happening, and they just really got to jump ahead. And there really was no reason. He cited homelessness. That's what John Whitehead referred to in his Rutherford Institute piece. That it's like the war. We got to fight homelessness now. So we got to, that's a pretext to bring in the police state. And again, this is not constitutional. This is anti-Americana. So, yeah.
I have a few more things about it if you want to dig a little deeper. And one is like for the homelessness, there are laws against or judicial decisions against controlling homelessness in your place. And there's also a lot of a setup like Austin, Texas, went to LA and San Francisco to see how they handled homelessness, which of course are the places that have the worst homelessness in the country. And now Austin has a homeless problem. So obviously there are reasons that they foment this homelessness, and it's for change zoning laws to, I think part of it is obsessional propaganda where they want the professional class who pays basically all of the taxes to feel like there are still crises that have to be paid by ever increasing taxes when that's just not true. It's a policy issue, in my opinion. But they have been wanting to, in my opinion, I think it's pretty clear, nationalize the police, have a national police force for a long time. When they had the defund the police movement after George Floyd and Portland, Oregon, I said, they obviously, if you defund the police on the local level, that's going to create a vacuum that the feds are going to fill. And that is stuff that came out of it at the time. Other things that I noticed that we're going to plug into policing on the national from a federal position in local communities was when Kash Patel got the FBI job, he said, and I might have mentioned it to you guys, I want to fan FBI agents out around the country. I think send like 1,500, it was his first pass, to start fighting crimes. The FBI is totally unconstitutional. It was created, the Department of Justice was created to enforce congressional law on southern states after the Civil War because there is no enforcement mechanism in the Constitution. You don't like the laws, you don't have to enforce them. I think that's the way it should be read. But you had also...
If I could just real quick on that trend, I see it happen globally. I can't cite just from memory other countries, but in Mexico, when you just mentioned what they're trying to do now is federalize police, Mexico just did that. They just gave the National Guard taking over they are the strike force to respond to problems now in Mexico. So it's like you're seeing the same thing happen in Mexico. That's now they're trying to make happen in the U.S. So again, it's really this same global project to bring in the global digital police state, just under different pretexts. Like so in the U.S. now it's homelessness, it's crime. In Mexico, it's the cartels. Over there, it's this stuff.
And ultimately, it'll be interoperable. But they're approaching this from many different positions. And internationally, I'm sure they have their own ways of doing it. But we had to defund the police. But some things that may have fallen under people's radar is the Capitol Police started setting up Capitol with an O, like the building, the Capitol Police, which is considered to be like the most locked down police department in the country, very impenetrable, opaque, and, sketchy. If you look at some of the stuff they've done, like the Navy Yard shooting, Miriam Carey, some things I've covered before, like they don't seem to have rules, but they are setting up shop in different cities, I think, to protect federal lawmakers or something crazy like that. But also what came out of the Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13th, 2023 thing, which brought us together, 2024, was the Trump alleged assassination attempt. They said, we need to have Secret Service on the ground and able to be interoperable with local police everywhere politicians or presidents or whatever might campaign. So Butler is a tiny place. If you're talking about having, and they're saying it can't be just right before we get there, it has to be all the time. Like they need at least 2 years to get up to speed. So what they were talking about is getting the Secret Service infiltrating every single police department. And the problem is there are many problems with national police, but the last thing I'll say is the problem with my number one or two problems with the national police is there's no one to watch the watchers. So I know you guys probably know the Denny Hastert story. He was a House Speaker. Oh my gosh, he was a Speaker of the House of the United States Congress. And nobody talks about this. Sibel Edmonds used to talk about it. And he would diddle kids and stuff and bring, I think, kids from Thailand into this to abuse them into an apartment that was fully monitored by the FBI because it was like a private apartment that he would do business, but he would also abuse these kids as far as what I heard on Sibel Edmonds. And the local police were getting reports from neighbors and stuff saying something's going on in that apartment. And they stopped it because you need somebody to, that you can't have. And then the other thing is you will not have any control over your policy. These are federal policies, and seeing Trump push down federal policies from above is happening in some of the other areas that are worrying me this week as well.
I got nothing to add, Mike.
Yeah, just to jump in. What I think is really shocking is just the scale of what's happening and the speed as well, just how quickly Trump's managed to really implement. I mean, some of these things is picked up from Biden, it's legacy stuff. But I would say when you think about the technocratic aspect and the building out of technocracy in the US, even I'm shocked at just how fast it's happening. And the Palantir database and treating the populace as adversaries, that the populace need to be surveilled and controlled, and they need all of your information. I mean, this is what all the data centers are about, is about having everything about a single person. So they can just pull you up immediately, your digital twin, and know everything, every location you've been to, every transaction you've ever made. And they can have that at the touch of a button. And then you add to this the actual on the ground stuff with the police forces being militarized. And it really doesn't look good. It looks like within 3 years, we could really be there. And I wasn't expecting it to happen so fast. And a good friend of all of ours, or at least of, I know you're a friend, Haroy, but you'll know his work as well, Monica Matt Smith, who is a part of Doug Case's take in crisis investing. He did a really nice summary of DARPA's theory of mind warfare. And he goes through how DARPA was researching how to build these algorithmic models to create strategies to control us, essentially, that everyone in the model is an adversary. There's no good or bad. We're all considered an adversary. And when you read through a document like that and hear what what DARPA was discussing, then you look at what Palantir actually do with their different projects over in Israel and Gaza and I think in other parts of the world, 2 other conflict zones. And then you realize that they're putting that model into the US.
I have a couple of things. First of all, there's definitely something changing, like psychologically. So I was watching Truth. Somebody sent me a Truth Stream Media thing, and the woman on there, she played a clip of Trump and saying and as soon as she played it, I was like, oh my gosh, he sounds exactly like V for Vendetta, which I watched the other night because it was free on Netflix. And I'm like, and I said to my husband, it's like, why are they pushing V for Vendetta on us right now? Because that's a pretty good movie to be free on Netflix. And it like him saying, like, we need to clean the filth out of the street. And it was really crazy. She juxtaposed the scene. So I feel like this is a very, a pivotal moment, and that it's a much bigger thing than Trump. And I would also say, like you said, Mike, I think that 3 years is enough time here. And I do too. So when I was for a while debating, well, Vance will have to slide in to finish this. And I'm like, no. Vance doesn't have to slide in to finish this. It's being set up for Newsom, and I think AOC, to be the savior. And of course, he'll finish the job, but as a changing of the guard, whatever. So I think they're going to keep the 2-party thing going for a little while. But I also agree with the data. So I wanted to tell you guys about the AI executive order. There's also an AI action plan that you might have been aware of, but this executive order came out in July, and it did a lot of really objectionable things. And I'm not super savvy into how what the hidden agendas would be, because I don't know what the risks are. But one of the things that I was alarmed by was the desire to take all the data, it seemed to me they did not want private companies to be able to own the data, which is a huge asset for private companies that have been working. They really changed their business strategy to get data. That's where the money is. And if you're going to, make it impossible for them to really protect that, your privacy is violated, and those companies become less viable. But there's other stuff, like they may be backing off this because it was undesirable. People didn't like it, but pushing down, like if the state has policies we don't like, we're not going to give you this money. There's a lot of coercion with the money from Trump. And 2 other things. One is they're absolutely accelerating AI. They want to deregulate. They want nuclear power. They want all the fossil fuels. They want research, accelerate. And then they also want to disseminate it to the rest of the world. And when I read this, I said, this executive order should be 100-page or 1,000-page congressional bill. This is legislation, and Congress controls the purse strings. So he would have no money to execute this executive order. And I realized, I suspect that all these deals he's making, you give them the trade coercion, and then Japan, and I can tell you the details of the deals, but you probably don't want to hear it, $500 billion from them, billions, hundreds of billions, potentially from NVIDIA. There's a lot of money that's going to Trump's discretion in these deals that he's cutting. And I think that could be used as an end run around the way our financing works and to implement this stuff.
Yeah, so that's and it's a bit esoteric and bit beyond me, but I felt like I was sort of front running that months ago when I was talking a lot about Dr. Martin Erdman, who says this is the most important thing, and he's about to publish a new book on that. He had a heart attack 3 days before this is supposed to come on my podcast. His second heart attack, neo-mercantilism, and I had on Michael Every, the renowned financial analyst, before I went on summer break, and he's talking about what you just said. It's mercantilism. And before getting to that, I just finished reading George Orwell's 1984, and it's really like this is what's happening now. O'Brien are revealing that he actually wrote Emmanuel Goldstein's book that has a lot to do with controlled opposition. But what else was going to add? What you said, Mike? We're cooked, if you ask me. Like, I have so many examples that I want to go through as we talk about. It's just from my vantage point of USA, Mexico, Croatia, I see the same thing rapidly being implemented everywhere. It's insane. Like you guys know what you just talked about. My story of DHS taking me off of PayPal. That was if you're spreading malinformation, you're a non-kinetic threat. If you're spreading disinformation, you are attacking the cyber infrastructure of the U.S. government. If you're a thought criminal. And then for the first time, my Mexican bank account last week, I logged in and it said I was restricted. So it's like my bank account was restricted. I can still use it, but now I have to add more, give more data and identification, and that's happening everywhere. And just your story, I want to share my screen again. Reddit. This is just a ship of things to come. Reddit now is going to block the Internet Archive. AI companies are scraping content, and so everyone's going to start doing this. And this, what this basically means is that I had the quote from George Orwell: "The past was erased, the erasure was forgotten, the lie became the truth." And then you're seeing these stories like AI data centers are going to worsen copper shortage. And I've been saying this. Michael Fallon of Sovereign Nations says one of the primary reasons for sustainable development in 2030 net death zero is the need to transition current energy resources away from citizens and toward data centers empowering AI. Haven't I been saying this on Cognitive Dissonance for like a year?
Yes, now? But it was a thought that both of us had simultaneously. And I was like, you're the only other person I know. I totally agree that they've been pushing that green energy so that we have to eat the scraps while they use the uranium and the oil and stuff. And now they're saying they want mini nukes for their lunar base. I'm like, okay, I think they're going to use the mini nukes for AI.
Yeah. I mean,
they say they're going to need I read the other day, or maybe Monica, I actually heard it on your show. I didn't read it. I listened to it. It was on your show. It was a great interview with Ian Davies. And he said that they're going to need to bring online the power consumption of Japan every single year for the next 40 years if they're going to achieve some of these goals with AI and the data centers. So the power consumption of Japan every single year. And to do that, they'll actually have to be in these mini modular nuclear reactors in communities all across the world. So that actually makes me think, well, how could they weaponize that? They could have us all being exposed to massive amounts of nuclear radiation because we go to a third world war and they start bombing these things. That's what automatically I thought of. But in any case, yeah, it does seem like the ambitions are huge, but do you think they can actually achieve it? Do you think there's not going to be some black swan at some point that really disrupts this? A lot of it seems to me too ambitious with the AI. Like we're kind of crossing a Rubicon. It's not good. Because, if you go back to 2000, remember the dot-com crash?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Yes.
The internet, and they laid 500 times the amount of cable they needed or actually used in the end. And they flooded this, cheap money was going into the space. Everyone was creating business, deregulation, exactly what's happening now. And then we had a massive collapse. And for the next decade, tech companies went.
I think ultimately, again, they fail. When that is, who knows? But I think it's going to be in that sort of attempt to do it. It's going to be like Frankenstein. It's going to be Mad Max. It's going to be Collapse. It's going to be Hunger Games, shades of all of that. And I think what they're trying to do to mitigate what you're talking about, Mike, is because they can't roll it out everywhere. And I could just be speaking for Mike here in Croatia. I was shocked to experience blackouts. I've been experiencing blackouts now in Mexico, here now in Croatia this summer, and that's why they're trying to herd us into the cities. And so we'll talk about this in a bit. But the climate lockdowns now is they're trying to make off limits rural areas, and because they can't power rural and urban across the U.S., across Mexico, across Europe, they've got to create these pretexts to get us out of the rural zones, or just leave for dead the people who remain there, kind of like Brave New World, the savages, and get as many people into the cities, like cattle herded onto the farm, where they can have the AI data centers and energy to run in the urban areas. I think that's their sort of short-term solution.
That's a good point. That's a 15-minute city thing. That's in that you'll have no privacy. You'll own nothing. You'll be happy. The end of that is the outliers, the people who live in the outlands. The people who you're saying is left for dead. But a couple of things from what you guys were saying. First of all, this is today's paper, and I have in the margin memory hole 1984 because they're going through the Smithsonian and they're throwing stuff away. And I'm not sure I care. I don't believe in public museums anyway, but it is getting memory hold under the auspices of I hate DEI. But
it was interesting. Just yesterday, I was making an episode from my show, and I went to Google News. I was like, I just need a random article about lockdowns. I wanted to just remind people with an image from the news about how brutal it was, and it gave me one page of results. One page of results for lockdowns.
How is that? Nothing has one page of results.
There must be about 5,000,000 articles. Don't you remember the daily barrage of articles coming from every media source during COVID? It gave me one page, and I was like, they've scrubbed it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there. It wasn't coming up on Google. So
Archive.org
this is going to happen. And that will automatically make people like us look crazier to the next generation because they won't have the first-hand sources. So I think what people need to do is to start creating media devices and collating some of the craziness that we've lived through, ready to show people in the future, especially if you're going to have children or your grandchildren. Otherwise, they will think you're nuts because they'll be so indoctrinated if you don't have the evidence that, the dancing nurses and things like this. It's going to get crazy.
I wanted to talk to you guys about this. What was I looking at? One of my AI threads I was pulling on led me to the Argonne, the National AI Research Project that's been going on for 2 years, funded by the government. And I was like, Argonne, I've heard of that. And I realized because they have something called Wildfire GPT, which when I was investigating the fires, I stumbled upon. I was like, oh, let me read that article. And I had the link to the article, scrubbed. And I got into archive.org and I did find one thing. So I printed it out. It doesn't seem very interesting to me, but it's scrubbed. And that in itself makes it somehow valuable. I think because it front runs stuff that's happening now in Canada. Like they talk about what they're preparing for in Canada. And I think it's happening right now, which we have to get to. But I wanted to just make a couple of points. With the bubble, I totally saw that too. I'm like, they're doing the exact same thing. They're going to have a tech bubble, but look what happens. All the people on top back then are still on top. It pisses away everybody's money. They send it into a black hole, just like, it's just a great reset of people who aren't the super wealthy, but have the money to invest or go out on their own. And they still do effectively crowdsource everything they need, even though it's incredibly wasteful. But that's so with the AI thing, they start out with this claim, it's all for MAGA. It's to make America great. It's for America, 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 America. It's not for America. It's the taxpayer will subsidize the research. Oligopolists at best will get it and then will benefit from it. And it gets disseminated. It's not going to make America. We might as well let other countries do it and then rip them off. But I also wanted to get your opinion on the energy consumption. Like Malthus, that Malthusian horror of human population growing is ridiculous. It was a reason for a lot of really terrible things. However, if you start using up energy at an exponentially accelerating rate, you're creating a Malthusian crisis by increasing the human footprint to a preposterously abnormal level that could not possibly have been anticipated by, I like to say, God. Gold, oil, uranium, weed and wine, eggs, things that God gave us that we have enough of. I just, this to me is the most immoral thing I've ever heard.
Well, I'm just saying, they're the ones doing it now, bringing in, like, if we just continue it on as we are now, you got enough for everyone. But now if they're going to bring in these data centers, it's like, that's going to cause democide, right?
That's what I think. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe they want to make it so that our footprint is that we are the problem again. Every human being now uses 1,000 times the energy they used to use. Of course, it's not the human beings using it, but if you take energy consumption, divide it by the number of people, it's going to start increasing exponentially. And this is something, AI, we don't need. The problems in the world are not because human beings need to think faster and harder and all at once. That's not the problem. This is such a setup. It's shocking.
And I just got an article sent to me from one of my community members saying that in the UK, they're rapidly rolling out facial recognition cameras across all communities to help with community policing. So flooding our nations with migrants who have led to massively increased levels of crime in all of our communities. This is going to be the justification. All we need. And then the digital IDs to find out where they're going and to check on them. And this is how it's going to be. And it's happening everywhere. But the one thing I would say about America, where it's really different, is if you look at Europe and the EU, these are massive bureaucracies. They're very slow moving. So whilst they're way more totalitarian in their rhetoric, like, yeah, central bank digital currencies, bring it on in Europe, that's what they say. But they're so slow moving. And in America, you engage the private sector with a financial incentive. And also all of this capital floods into America because of the S&P 500 and the stock market. So over there, you can get stuff done that would take other nations 50 years. All of the red tape we've got in Europe just makes it a big, sluggish behemoth. Whereas the US, it's like, what you want? Get Donald Trump in, stablecoins everywhere. Boom. Crypto, boom. Palantir. Just pump the stock prices up, and those companies have the capital to install it immediately. So that's why I think America is going to be out in front on all of it. And, Britain's doing it, Europe's doing it, but I just think America's going to be there way faster.
Hey, this is another fascist element that's happening, this public-private thing just through the roof. But I would say, quote, America might be funding it, may be promoting it, but look at how China and Japan in the past have taken things that America has front run and leveled up, stood on the shoulders. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying, they arrest people for Chinese spies. I used to kind of poo-poo that, but it's probably true. It's like, why should we, I'm not sure us being ahead of it will have the bust. The oligarchs will remain standing. So I'm not convinced, and I would like to be, of how the people, how America, even standard of living and stuff would increase if we put all our money in creating this, lose 90% of it, and then disseminate it to the rest of the world. And I'm happy to hear that. But I wanted to also say, and this is the last item, is that this idea of getting the private sector to finance it all is also augmented or facilitated by another executive order, completely, in my opinion, not in the realm of executing. It's really in a legislative thing, is allowing 401ks, which is our tax benefit, tax preferred in retirement funds, which have very limited or tightly controlled things you can invest in because it replaced pension. So it's supposed to be for your retirement. Now Trump wants the regulators to coerce the companies to allow crypto, private equity, and real estate investments. And to me, that's that kind of stuff, big risk of loss of principal, isn't what the 401k was designed for. I'm all for liberty, but those guys are looking for more dumb money, and the dumb money, myself included, is in the 401ks.
And just that, I think in the short term, there'll be financial benefit for people who are buying into all the crypto stuff as it launches the new system. But then that's going to taper off, and we're going to quickly all find ourselves in this algorithm ghetto collapse. And I just wanted to mention, you guys, you've heard me mention, I watched Arthur C. Clarke's science fiction novel, the film adaptation not long ago, 3-hour made for TV movie was great. Childhood's End. That's related to the depopulation I think we're talking about. And I read someone recently on a Substack or somewhere mention that as well. So it's like, I think, so I'm not crazy. Other people are seeing these references, and to the migrants, what you mentioned, Mike. So this is the first time ever this summer in Croatia now that I'm here. I was shocked. Like I'm at supermarkets on the islands in the Adriatic, like tiny islands, and I see two Malaysians, from Southeast Asian workers. They don't even speak Croatian. They're stocking the shelves. I walk, and then out of the aisle comes this Indian guy cleaning the floor. At the bakery, there's a Venezuelan selling burek, one of my favorite Croatian breakfasts. I was here 3 years ago. There was none of that.
Ask them what gave them the idea to go there.
Well, I mean, it's not a comment. I'm just making the neutral observation. I think a lot of it is Croatians have told me that the salaries are not increasing. So the business owners, the government, they're not raising salaries. And so Croatians are just exiting in mass to Ireland, Germany, elsewhere, Mexico. Not really Mexico, but I'm like one of the 20 Croatians in Mexico. And then because they can't fill these jobs, they don't want to raise wages. They're bringing in from the third world, who to make up for that difference. And the Croatian government and European governments are making deals now to bring in tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of foreign workers to fill this need. So part of it is a need from the host nations as well as the people looking for work. But my point was, like, until this year, I'd never actually witnessed it to this extent with my own eyes, which is absolutely wild. But I think ultimately it goes also to the Babylon multicultural Tower Babel project of globalism, right? To mix up all the nations.
That's happening in Central Europe too. So I've noticed it for the first time in my wife's home country, Poland. As you're going around smaller cities now, you're seeing, 2 Asian men, 2 Indians, a couple of Somalian-looking guys, and this has never been the case. Every time we've been to these places, so it's happening, and already the crimes have started just recently. In one of my favorite places, Torun, one of the favorite cities. It's like the city you visited, Monica, in the UK, York. It's a medieval city. Beautiful. A young girl was walking home. Going through a park, she was a barmaid, I think, a student as well. And a Venezuelan migrant attacked her, raped her, tried to stab her eyes out so she couldn't identify him. It was extremely gruesome. Ended up killing her, of course. And it hit the national media. So there's lots and lots of pushback now. People are getting very angry because they've seen what most people in these countries have already been to the West. They've lived in Europe, European cities, like Berlin, or they've lived in Ireland, they've lived in the UK, they've been to Sweden, and they've seen what it's like there. And then they've come home and said, right, well, we don't want it here. And I find even left-leaning people here are anti-migration. It's a very small percentage of the population in these countries that support migration. It's not like in, let's say, Great Britain, where many people are cowtailed into supporting it. So I think that's problem setting up for the future. Yeah, I think it's going to have a different effect. I don't know about you, Hawaii and Croatia, if people are actually having or seeing incidences of crime or rape go up because it's happened here.
I've heard stories. Some of the Croatian dissidents that I met have said that, there have been instances of rape or assaults, that sort of stuff, and that the Croatian police and authorities are actually trying to cover that up and not have it get out in the news stories. But people are seeing an increase in crime. And I thought maybe to jump to some of the technocracy news, because we were talking about it, and I had some news to share real quick. And I want to play this clip of Catherine Austin Fitts, because we were talking about this stablecoin thing. But just going back real quick, where is it? We talked about the climate lockdown. This was a meme. Someone created this photo that says climate curfew now in effect. Please return to your 15-minute city zone. Immediately or face fines up to $100,000. This is a great Spanish author, Cristina Martin Jimenez. And this is an actual clip from, so this is in Spain, where they've gotten in this urban area rid of a lot of the parking spots, and they've made them into for electric cars only. And so people have nowhere now to park. And I've seen some type of stuff like this here in Croatia, where it's getting in many places where I used to go previously in Croatia. Now they're like parking lot. They're charging where they didn't used to charge for cars now. So it's just increasingly becoming more expensive to own a gas powered car. And then of course we had this story. Where is it? This guy I won't play the whole clip, but in Nova Scotia now. Here's the original clip. It's hot outside, so you can't go into nature, into the forest, or you'll get a $25,000 fine. So here's the original clip announcing climate lockdowns. So I think COVID was to normalize this in people's minds. And then from here on out, it's going to be climate lockdowns, and it's going to be homelessness crisis lockdowns or whatever. So here's
here today because the experts have advised, and we agree, that more precautionary steps are required. We have to stay in front of this. We can take steps while we are in the middle of trying to fight fires, or we can be proactive and try to prevent them. And we have chosen to be proactive and try to prevent fires. So based on the recommendations of Scott Tingley and his team, they recommended, and we agree with the following. Effective 4 p.m. today, we're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods. We are restricting travel and activities that really aren't necessary for most of us. Hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods are not permitted. Trail systems through woods are off limits. Camping is allowed, but only in official campgrounds. The fine for violating any of these bans is the same as the fine for the ban on burning, $25,000.
I mean, absolute insanity. And Robin Minotti, he put these two photos. He says, spot the difference. So COVID, they had the signs on the highway, stop COVID, stay home. And then now it's a stay out of the woods, burn ban, $25,000 fine. And then you had this guy just the other day in Nova Scotia. He's the first guy to get the fine. I won't play the whole clip, but...
Hey everybody, Jeff Evely here, out in Nova Scotia.
So he actually walks to the offices of the government, the forest people, and says, I'm about to walk into the woods. And like, if I do that, you're going to give me a fine. And they're like, yeah. And so he walks into the woods and they write him up for, I think they doubled the fine somehow. I don't know how, to $50,000.
They gave him $28,000, nearly $29,000. But the funny thing was, he asked, like, well, why is it more than 25? They said, a victim surcharge. It's like, who's he victimized, right? You know, who was victimized in the crime? So, yeah, this is really disturbing, though. I made an episode about this, and you know, if listeners want to kind of look into the history of where we actually got our rights to go in the forest, you know, for most of history, we didn't have those rights to access nature. In Great Britain, it took until the 1950s before we was legally allowed to go in. That's when they created the national parks. Before then, if you went into any land in the UK, any woodland, any forest, there was gamekeepers with dogs. There was no public access. And people fought for that by actually going out and doing mass trespassing. There was a big mass trespass in 1931 on Kinder Scout where hundreds of people got together and they said, screw this, we're going to go climb these mountains, we're going to go out. And they tried to stop them with guns and bats. And that's how people got their freedoms. And now you've got these cowards who are accepting this order. Now, I know a lot of people are speaking out and saying we don't want it. You got to get outside and go into the forests. All of you, you know, you got to go out as a big group, thousands of you, and say, we're not accepting this. Because if you accept that, you are literally accepting serfdom. You are going to become a serf within a very short space of time. So I think it's disgusting what's happening. But also, I think if people don't take action, then they're accepting it. Because like with COVID, you have to be the example that, no, this isn't acceptable.
Well, I think what this guy did was, I'm sure he'll be able to crowdfund from freedom lovers around the world to pay for his fine. But just to continue, again, this is happening. What you said earlier, Mike, it's happening so fast. I can't believe, none of us can believe how fast this is happening globally. So that was Canada. Here's Belgium. So this guy did a short video, and I found the actual article. There's a town in Belgium where cars will not be allowed to non-residents. So citizens of other parts of Belgium cannot enter with their cars into the city because it's hot. Again, climate from Belgium to Canada, you're seeing it all over the place. And I really love Richard Welling's account, who's based in the UK. And we're seeing now in the UK, well, yeah, right up your alley. Actually, I met some people from Wales the other day on an island in Croatia, and I was chatting with them. This says Wales Online newspaper. New drink driving laws are bad news for a 1 pint only drinker. So that means you can't even have a 1 pint now, even if you're below the limit. So Richard Welling's, I love his comments. He says, the establishment is clearly trying to destroy the British pub. They don't like people discussing things in an environment that's difficult to monitor, manipulate, and censor. Many rural pubs will shut down due to extremely low drink drive limits. We know they're going to build that into our cars soon, so you won't be able to turn on your car if you had one sip of alcohol. And then here he says, again, they're forcing people out of their cars to advance climate change lockdowns. What were some of the other recent pieces that he talked about? Again, getting rid of roads, narrowing roads, bringing in bikes.
Just while we're on the subject of some of these things, and it's not necessarily related to climate lockdowns, but I did see as well, there's a police force in the UK, and I hope this wasn't a Babylon Bee and I've just been fooled, but it looked legitimate. Did you see this, guys, where there's police officers, 2 women that are running around the city, and there's an undercover police car following them, and they're waiting until the women get catcalled, and then the police will jump out of the car, and they will go to the whoever's catcalled them and say, like, whistled at them or whatever.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
And then,
they have nothing better to do.
The police officer even says, this isn't a crime, but we need to address this. And it's like, you've got skyrocketing knife crimes, skyrocketing rapes, and this is where they're applying the resources. So it's like, whilst you've got all of these dystopian things happening, the domestic demoralization is speeding up really fast as well. And that's something that I'm noticing. They're really coming down hard on people who are recognizing and noticing how bad it's getting and are speaking out. So they're making you feel like an infant. They're infantilizing all of us. Just like with COVID, how do you wash your hands? You know, and this goes back to the forest thing. You know, like people can't figure out how to not light a fire in a forest, so you can't go in the forest at all.
You're right.
So that's the other part of this is, you
know,
know,
they can just have drones
technocracy.
look. You know, over that's how they used to do it, is just fly planes
we
and
have
look for
helicopters
fires.
today. You know, we live in the forest. Helicopters flying over to check for smoke. And there's watchtowers all over. I mean, come on. We know how this works. We've been living in forests for thousands of years. And so I think that's a key part of it too, is this demoralization and infantilizing people.
Did you guys hear about the CDC shooting? Speaking of COVID, this some kid, Patrick Joseph White, I think his name was, which is weird. They said that he's been on the radar a couple of weeks ago. The cops were called. So I looked up Patrick Joseph White, Georgia arrest, and a face came up, but it was a drunk driving guy from a couple of months. So I don't know what the story is with this guy. He got off, he was, I think, like 30 years old, got off 500 shots from the CVS across to the CDC when finally a cop showed up, and he killed the cop and then he killed himself. And the whole narrative is that he was basically deranged because he thought having gotten vaccinated affected him. And so then the CDC lady got up and said the vaccine misinformation has become a serious threat. So now vaccine misinformation is going to be terrorism, it sounds like to me. And it's just another, confusing, a way to merge speech with action and pre-crime, so you're going to, if speech is crime, then you've got pre-crime.
Well, that made me think what Mike said earlier in the UK, Ground Zero, again, Orwell, Airstrip 1, the age verification. And so, okay, it's to check your age, but now they saw recently on Twitter, there was like crime happening in UK, nothing to do with protecting kids. And they were, so British citizens were not able to see that. Or so it's just become a convenient excuse to censor anything and everything. And of course, it's the digital ID, basically. And I just real quick, again, just to share my screen, some of the stuff that I've been seeing, like here in Croatia. I've been driving the highways in Croatia, and now they're going to get rid. So basically, it says toll booths are going to go, and everyone who wants to use the highway in Croatia, you're going to have to download an app or register on this new digital system. So create an account, so then they know all of your information, who you are, where you live, all that, and then you'll have to pay through that to use the highways. And I think this is going to happen everywhere. Like I saw in the U.S., they got rid of the cash tolls. So you can't use the highway now anonymously in Croatia. You have to download an app.
They look at your license plate. Like, I don't even think you have to download the app. You get a ticket. Or even they got it to where I think in some places you don't even get a ticket. You just get the toll. So if you blow through it, they just send it.
Yeah, and then you have just so many other things. And I've seen this trend everywhere. I've seen it in Mexico. I've seen it in Canada now, in the U.S., and here in Croatia. It says Croatia prepares new affordable rent plan to ease crisis for young families. So people can't afford to own homes or rent. So the government is going to buy up or build homes that are for rent only, that you can't buy them. And so now this is happening all over the place. And then real quick, same thing here in Mexico. Here's the story again, just from Mexico City's mayor unveils housing program to reduce impacts of gentrification. Same project everywhere. You will own nothing. And I thought I wanted to mention this as well. This story in Mexico, one senator proposed canceling visas or residence of foreigners who have Mexican visas or residence visas, or if you're not a Mexican citizen, if you insult Mexicans, to be able to kick you out of the country. We're seeing that same thing now in the U.S. We're seeing it now. So they want to normalize unpersoning people. So basically stripping people of their citizenship if you're a thought criminal or of your visa. So in Mexico, they're using. So I think all of these things are manufactured. So you see this. You guys have heard of Mexico City, of these protests complaining about Americans coming into Mexico City and increasing the prices of living. I'm like, what a joke! I live in Guadalajara. I live among all Mexicans, and just because I bought a house, like all the prices are going up amongst just Mexicans themselves, because BlackRock's and they're manipulating the market. So it has nothing to do at all with foreigners. So what's happening in Mexico City, I think, has been manufactured to normalize this sort of thing. And then you've got, again, World Bank Digital here says, did you know 850 million people globally lack official ID, with 470 million in sub-Saharan Africa? And I'm like, the Nazis tried to computationally classify everyone with the help of IBM in the 1940s. And it's like, what's wrong with lacking an official ID? Like, what's wrong with that? Oh, because if you don't have an ID, you can't be controlled. That's why. And so that's why they're bringing in all this stuff now. And I'm giving my personal experience. Like in Mexico now, I couldn't renew my debit card. I just found out my ISP canceled my internet being away for no reason. I don't know what's going on, so I'll figure that out when I go back to Mexico. And here, so every country now, like you used to be able to apply the Doug Casey's international man philosophy, right, Mike? You're very well versed in that, and you can't do that anymore because they're just ramping up the KYC, know your customer stuff, and so they're really centralizing control.
Yeah, it's happening fast as well, because I've noticed as well a lot of these citizenship programs and residency programs by investment or by spending time in a place, they're really clamping down on that too. So they don't want you moving around. And also, I think there is this artificial push to get people to turn on the gringo. They don't want you to be feeling welcome in other places. They want you to stay where you are and be trapped. They don't want you to try and move around and find a better life for yourself. So they're trying to turn the locals against people. I've heard a number of people say that Latin America, that's happening in many places. And it's artificial, of course, because what they're really trying to cover up is the massive inflation that's happening across the board. It's not, the property prices aren't just rising in Mexico City or, in Latin America. They're rising in every country. In all Western nations, we're seeing the same massive inflation. And so you can't blame it on people moving there and gentrifying it. If you want to know, who's really buying up all the assets, it's a tiny amount of people at the very top. Most people are struggling, really struggling right now. So, yeah, It's becoming harder. If you want to move, if you want to create a new kind of life for yourself, I think time's running out on that too. I just get the feeling that at some point all of this is gonna metastasize at once. There's gonna be another event, and yeah, the window will close on many of the avenues that currently are open to us, but may not be for much longer.
No, I'm finding that whereas before I used to be able to manage different things in another country from abroad, that's no longer the case anymore. I was at one of my Croatian bank accounts today, and I'm like, if when my card expires the next time, I'm like, no, with the app, it's weird. I downloaded the app on my phone. They have to activate it personally at the branch. So I'm like, if I get a new phone, my phone gets stolen, and I want to re-download the banking app and activate it, like I can't do it from abroad. They're like, no, you have to do it at a bank branch in Croatia, which is insane. It's like I have to physically come back to Croatia and do that. This is sort of stuff. And if I could, just going back to crypto for a second, this is 3-minute video of Catherine Austin Fitts, and it has to do with what you guys are talking about. And I just saw this today or yesterday. And I think she really summarizes what's going on. I was listening to interviews of other people rhyming with her reasoning. I listened to Luke Groman on Jacob Shapiro. I've had Shapiro on my podcast, and they were talking about Bitcoin. And what she says is basically they're trying to, with the stablecoin thing, get to take over the planet. And the ECB is angry with this because they want the rest of the world to, if they start buying stablecoins, they're going to be supporting the dollar and the American debt. And then at the same time, the U.S. is basically going to create this global totalitarian algorithm ghetto. So maybe get your thoughts on this clip.
Here's what they're planning to do, and this is why the BIS and ECB are upset. So remember when one company would tender for the stock of another company to take it over?
Yes.
Okay. So hostile takeover. The New York Fed and the Fed, through stablecoins with the Treasury, are now tendering for 8 billion global citizens through the currency.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're going to come in through the smartphones. You're going to come in through Apple Pay. You're going to come in through Google Pay, right?
Yep.
And what they're hoping is if you're in Bolivia, you're going to get off the Bolivian currency, or if you're in the EU, you're going to get off the euro, and you're going to move on to stable coins, which means you leave the existing banking system that's making loans to businesses and enterprises and people, and instead put your money in a stable coin, which finances the U.S. government. So you are proposing a giant sucking sound of money out of the banking systems all around the world into financing the U.S. government. I mean, talk about a Soviet economy.
You don't even need to take it out of the banking system. You can add it to the banking system.
I'll get in. That's a whole nother conversation, right? You can, but you're talking about sucking money out of every currency in the world into the dollar.
Yes, that's what you're talking about,
right? And so instead
there.
of everybody doing their own CBDC, reporting up to the BIS, you're talking about the Fed and the New York Fed offering everybody instead to come into a private CBDC, which is totally programmable. So my Palantir social credit system and program will apply not just to Americans, but to the whole planet.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Bingo.
So we're building a planetary global credit system.
Yeah.
Which is why I find that, so we're talking about basically a hostile tender for the whole planet. Now, we did, in the second quarter wrap-up, Mark Goodwin did a fabulous piece on stablecoin, which is Accelerate, and I recommend to everybody that they read and listen to that one. I did an interview with him. And then this week, we published our interview with Darren Moore on stablecoins, and I go through all of the.
So what do you guys think? We're seeing Bitcoin skyrocket now, Ethereum, and I think my thesis has not changed, and I think this is just proving that they created Bitcoin as whetting the appetites to get us into this system. And some people are going to write it up and great, make money, but it's happening now.
Yeah, well, I think we all was kind of in the same boat with the Bitcoin thing from the beginning. There was just some odd-smelling fish there, and I think it's now coming to light. And whether it was created for that purpose or not is really irrelevant at this point. It's clearly a co-opted space, and the addition of stable coins. The reason why Catherine's saying that is because the stablecoin companies under the Genius Act have to put their reserves into US treasuries, and 70% of all Bitcoin transactions use stable coins. Cryptocurrencies mostly too, because people cycle out of one asset like a Bitcoin and into stable coins so they can immediately redeploy it rather than going into fiat and having to pay fees. So the reason why they care about Bitcoin is because it helps them expand the stable coins. The stablecoin companies are utterly corrupted. That's why they're all based in the Cayman Islands. Nobody's ever audited Tether. They are now actually the 7th or 8th largest holder of US debt in the world, including other nations, and they've never even been audited. Can you believe that? So that's what's going to happen. It's going to expand it. Now, when Catherine says, oh, the rest of the world is going to be forced to finance US debt too because they're going to put stable coins on them, it's like, yeah, but no, they're not going to allow that. So what does that mean? It means capital controls. These European nations are going to start to control your capital. And this goes back to why they don't want Europeans moving to other nations. They want to trap you where you are, and then they're going to try and force you to finance your own government's debt. They're not going to allow the US to do that because then their economy, well, not the economy, and the government and the state itself will collapse if they can't finance themselves. So I think we're really going very quickly towards something where they're going to try and control your money. And it's going to happen in every country. And to do that, they'll probably have to control movements too, because money moves with people. So, yeah, we're going to the end game of the financial part, in my opinion. And that's why I don't know what you guys think, but I think the whole stablecoin Bitcoin thing is more of an act of desperation than it is anything else. It just shows you how desperate they're getting, that they have to bring this in to give the Ponzi system like another wave of capital. And now they're expanding it to 401ks, which is insane because, of course, it's the riskiest part of finance. Bitcoin fell 50% in a couple of days in the crash in 2020. So these things can wipe you out. And this is the retirees. Now, we know that they're underfunded, all these pensions. So my belief is they're going to wipe everyone out in the crash because they can't fund anyone. And then there'll be a deal on the other side of it. And I speculated recently that maybe when they have this crash and they take all the assets, because they can literally scoop them all up because it's being used as collateral by the big banks. So your pension is actually already collateralized. It's not there for you. It's there for the banks to use as collateral in a crash. If they take it all, if you want to tokenize all the assets, well, that's how you do it. You have a crash. They take all the assets out of the system, they tokenize it, and they give you it back, or they give you a portion of it back. But you have to sign up with a digital ID and put yourself in the system. I think that's where we're going to end up somewhere. And I think it's probably going to happen before 2030.
I see a couple of parallels. And this is exactly how the petrodollar works. So Saudi Arabia takes the money and puts it in U.S. treasuries. So I agree with you. It's like a layering thing. And it's meant, I think, to kick the can on a collapse. And also, what you said about the tokenization, it just reminds me of like the new dollar, like when there was Latin American, they're like a new peso. They're like, well, we're crashing the system. We got to issue a new peso. And everyone's like, okay, they're just pesos now, but they're like 1,000th of what they were before. And I noticed that in today's newspaper, it says crypto tycoon Quan pleads guilty to fraud. That was the Terra thing. So just to your point that it hasn't been audited. These things, it's even worse than gambling, because like actually even gambling for the most part, like Caesar's Palace is there. If they really do fraud you, you can go to that building, But yeah, there's no way to value crypto, and I'm fine with it as a gamble, but that's the opposite of what the 401k is for.
Somebody replied to one of my comments recently. I was an article about gold reserves in the US and the speculation that, there's not enough gold there. So they're going to have to, at some point, add to their gold reserves if we're going to a system that's going to be reset versus gold. But also I was speculating with Trump and his tariffs in Switzerland that he's been driving Switzerland really hard. And people are like, Switzerland? They sell cheese, they sell luxury watches. And what else can the US get from them? Oh yeah, they refine gold. They're the gold refining hub of the world. And Donald Trump seems to me to be wanting to angle to get some of these gold refiners to set up shop in the US. And I was like, well, that'd be really useful for refining all of that stolen Libyan gold and all of those dusty gold bars that supposedly exist in Fort Knox, but also to get more gold into those vaults that don't have to be routed through Switzerland, where there's exports and imports and a data trail and a paper trail. So there's some interesting stuff happening in finance right now. It's almost like they're setting up for the next system and also getting ready to implode the current system. But just one more thing on the, on the crypto thing. If people are being encouraged now to go into that space, normally that's the last innings. You know, when they get the dumb money, the public money to go in, and that's the exit money for the big money that's already setting up to leave, but they need that last wave of liquidity. So it pumps up the final prices and then they get out and you're left holding the bag. So maybe it's going to happen quicker than we thought.
Do you remember MF Global, John Corzine? That he took what they did, he bet big on the European debt crisis, and he, in order to shore up their proprietary positions, he used the deposits of regular people. So and he got out of going to jail by just giving those people their money back. But what he actually did when it was circling the drain was liquidate what he could and gave it all to JP Morgan. That's called fraudulent conveyance. You can't do that.
The same thing happened in the Lehman Brothers collapse as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Going into Lehman Brothers crisis, they handed off something like 8 billion, 10 billion to JP Morgan. So it couldn't be taken into bankruptcy. But the crazy thing about that one was JP Morgan illegally classed as the secured creditor. And that's a legal expression. That means in a crisis, you are secured. So you're the first one to be made whole again.
Yeah.
So in the court case that ensued, when people said, wait a minute, you just stole all these client assets and gave it to JP Morgan, the judge said, yeah, but they're secured creditors.
Well, that may be true. But with MF Global, that was not true. These were people, it was their money and they used it to backstop proprietary investments. So you're not supposed to cross the streams like that. But
this is what I don't think people are prepared for, is that if something does happen.
It was written in that he could actually do that, I think. I think people don't realize that that's what your money in the bank is. It's securing other stuff could just evaporate.
Yeah. Well, imagine what's going to happen if everything goes to hell in a handbasket. How many times are we going to find out that places in the fallout that, they didn't really have the gold in the vault, or, they didn't have the deposits on account, it had been shipped off to Bermuda or the Caymans. I think the whole system is riddled with these cases of fraud, and people are living as though the money's there. But when the game of musical chairs stops, we'll find out, there was only 4 chairs, not 5,000.
I liked what you said on a show I listened to recently with another Mike, where you said, these are not physical assets. Like if you have land and it's debt free, that's a physical asset. But if you're retiring and all your money is in the ether, you might be in for a nasty shock.
If I could just ask you, Mike, you wrote a great piece, I think it was for your paid subscribers on Substack, on the Beast system and tokenization. I thought it was really great. I forget some of the details. But aren't they, this new system they want to bring in, don't they want to have like, digital IDs, stablecoins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP being this new system? Or are you saying that's like going to collapse? I mean, if that thing collapses, then what's going to be the new system?
Well, there's 2 ways you can think about it, I guess. There is the propensity that they try and continue the current system and they allow you to own whatever digital assets you want, but it's in some wrapper that they control. So they'll have oversight over the wallet or the streams where it's moving through. So you feel like you've got some freedom. I've got my digital wallet. It all looks kosher, but actually, no, they're just monitoring and surveilling everything. But actually, what I think is more probable is that in the crisis, you'll see Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of those things get utterly wiped out. And maybe the stable coins too, they'll get taken down, and then all of the infrastructure will remain and they will just commandeer that. And that will give them the impetus to say, well, listen, we can't trust it to the private sector. Look what just happened. You lost all your assets. We're going to fix it. Here's the solution. Just sign up to this. I think that's more likely, putting my evil psychopath hat on.
Well, FTX was a little bit of foreshadowing of that, I think. FTX. I'm waiting for Trump to pardon that SBF guy. Whatever.
I don't think that guy's really sat in a prison.
Me neither. No way.
He's somewhere on the Adriatic sipping on.
Yeah. I don't think Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison either. Come on.
Nope.
Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, it was lovely talking to you guys. Great to be back.
And any other big news? Again, for me, it all comes back down to what we're talking about now. I won't play the full clips, but Jacob Nordegard, who I think, Monica, we've all interviewed him now, right? I think. Didn't you interview him?
No,
Monica?
I want to.
You have, but
I did. Yeah,
he just did a great. Here, he's talking about the agentic states, basically, which they're going to create this global government system. And Andrija Klarić, I've actually got his contact, so I'm going to try to get him in person or via Zoom. He speaks his English is good enough to do English, but he's interviewing Jacob. And then Oracle Films, I had on Phil of Oracle Films not long ago, and he created a great short clip from one of the independent media Alliance panels about Ian Davis talking about how it's all just going to be interoperable, and it's going to be modular, sort of. So we're not going to see it coming, but I think we touched on this recently. So when I go to the bank, my bank in one country and then the other, and then you've got this digital ID here and this thing there. Behind the scenes, that stuff is in a modular fashion. It's going to be linked together until eventually it's all just sort of one system. And so for me, it all comes down to basically this. I should rename my podcast to, Technocracy and Empire or something, because Putin. In a few days, Putin is meeting in Alaska with Trump, and I don't care. I'm going to be feasting on. We're going to roast another Croatian lamb in the village. And so I'll be pigging out on lamb.
That's going to be great. Lambing out.
Well, I'm going to be lambing out, and they're going to be talking about. I think a lot of it's manufactured, but that's going on. But I think ultimately it's about this global oligarchy. I just don't see. I mean, someone send me comments, change my mind, but I don't see anything more important to that, because tomorrow that means my internet access is going to be cut off. I can't travel. I can't bank. Okay, what else is more important?
The only thing else that I had on my radar was Netanyahu announcing that they're just completely taking over Gaza. Then at the same time, targeting and killing 5 Al Jazeera journalists, one of whom was 28. And he said he was in Hamas for 12 years. They said they have the documents that he joined Hamas. So I guess when he was 16, they're holding him to that, killed him. And we have I'm not going to say anymore. The Empire has mercenaries on the ground there under the guise of humanitarian aid. And I've been expecting from the beginning that they would foment and advertise a humanitarian crisis in order to justify Western boots on the ground there for the ground invasion, which is starting.
Yeah, they're getting ready to clear it out. And I just read today, again, Times of Israel, mainstream Israeli papers talking about how, it's just open now. Netanyahu openly
big
now.
Big protests, they don't care.
But he's openly discussing a greater Israel. And so I have no idea how any of that is going to end up. But, I think it's the whole Third Temple thing, Temple Mount, Antichrist thing. I did read a piece that they said they had these red heifers that they were
the heifers,
breeding, heifers out of Texas. But they said they were now discounted because they could not breed one that does not have a non-red hair. Like they've been getting some that has like a single non-red hair, so it's disqualified.
Right. So we've got a little time.
It's kind of, I don't know which way any of this is going to go. But they do have a hard-on for Iran. So
yeah.
Well, we should end on the good news that Donald Trump got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize by Bibi Netanyahu. So
really, I wasn't aware.
It was recorded.
Is this the Onion, Mike? Is that an Onion article?
No, it was recorded at the White House.
Freaking real. That's hilarious. Oh, how about the UFC fight at the White House? That's fun. Isn't there going to be a fight at the White House?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, well, we're kind of living in the Truman Show now. It's getting really bizarre.
Well, I'm just enjoying a wrestling
it.
guy.
At this point, you just gotta sit back and watch the show, I think.
Yeah, eat your popcorn, sit
Eat
on your island like her
you
voyage.
should sit-
Like,
yeah,
don't you notice
just eat
how much
lamb
more
on the
relaxed
island.
he
I'm
is?
like, I don't know what else. Just eat,
Yeah,
drink, be
groovy,
merry.
man. Kick off your
Well,
flip
this is why
flops
I'm
and have a
visiting
margarita.
communities.
What is it?
I was saying this is why I'm visiting communities. I'm getting ready for the post-collapse world where we're going to need to know plenty of people who can live off the land and take care of themselves, because your choice might be pretty stark once we get there. It'll be the digital matrix, or you're going to be
Like, no joke, I'm figuring out my
outside the
options. I'm, they're bringing in the EU exit entry biometric control system, and then in 2026 the electronic thought crime authorization. That's coming in everywhere, and because on the Adriatic islands, I've been talking to friends and families. Some of them are skippers. They got boats, and I'm like, I could just sail right in to the island in the Adriatic. So maybe I can't come in through the airport.
Yeah.
On the plane.
Yeah.
But no one's going to there's nothing stopping me just sailing right in to the island. And
that might be the last bastion of freedom, is living on a boat. I lived on a boat for 5 years, and once you go 6 miles out, you're in international waters. That's what Epstein and Maxwell was trying to build, right? These kind of floating islands where there was good.
The new law of the seas, though. They're trying to get a new law. But when I came home this time from Europe, just like the license plate readers, they did not stop me. They didn't look at my passport, nothing. They were just like, oh, hi, Monica. I'm like, what the fuck? What? I gave you no permission. I always say no when they say, can we take your picture? I always say no. And they didn't even ask.
No, it's fast now. We went through the U.S.
It's great. I love it. I'm like, I want to control it.
We did a layover through the U.S. and we had to go through the immigrant customs because some of my family is not yet. And it was so fast now. I mean, the line, you had to wait a little bit of the line, but now
they just smell your DNA.
I could just, he did take photos of us. Whatever, that's not my line in the sand. I've given up on that right now. But
I just say no. It's not that big a deal. But they did it anyway.
But he was really, when we came in, he was really like quick. He didn't even give me a chance to say no. He's like, quick, take the photo, boom. And I'm like, what? What's going on? It was weird. And then he did it for the rest of my family. But I'm kind of at the point like,
what are you going to do? I mean,
we've lost that battle, but we were it was very fast, and so we're moving. It's coming quick. Facial recognition. Your face is your passport, basically. So, yeah. Anything else, and then we'll wrap this one up so I can go have some more Croatian food and wine.
Have a cocktail.
I'm ready to go eat my testova's jedzenie, which is my mother-in-law's food. It's the best. So I'm ready to leave.
Dude, I'm coming to where she makes that food. Sorry.
Well, I'll just add. I've met a few of my listeners, which has been a lot of fun. And Max Egan is popping here in town in Croatia, so I'm always happy to meet with folks. If they're by me in Mexico or the U.S. or Croatia, and I'll be back soon in about a month's time. Geopolitics and Empire pays my bills. It hasn't this summer, so I haven't gotten any money since June almost. And so, if people have extra cash, please donate to Geopolitics and Empire or sign up to the paid Substack. But I will be restarting in a month's time. I've got Richard Grove will be coming on, hopefully, and some other interesting folks on Geopolitics and Empire. And so, stay tuned for that in September.
You can find me over on Substack, Parallel Systems. I recently got announced in an email. They said I'm a bestseller now, so that's pretty cool. And in finance, I've kind of been in the rising. Do you get that on Substack where you're going to it's like the junior league, and it's like you're bouncing up. It's like, I'm number 42 in fact. Oh no, I'm number 89. Oh, I'm out of it. So,
go for the subcategories.
Yeah. But finance is a pretty big.
That's a huge one,
hotly contested one. So that's pretty cool. But so a big thank you to anyone who's supporting me over on Substack. It's been really nice to kind of explore that platform a bit and meet some new people. But you can find me over there. I do have group coaching for investors starting again in September. So if anybody's looking to improve their ability to preserve wealth and maybe hopefully grow it going into harder times, you can find out more by going to the Substack. And also I should mention that actually I'm going to recommend your show, Monica. You had a great interview with Ian Davies recently. It was the best one I've had in many, many months. So I recommend people checking that out too.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to speak to him. You can find that and all of my stuff on your favorite podcasting platform under The Monica Perez Show. I'm also on Substack, YouTube, all of that stuff. Same thing, Monica Perez Show.
I'm going to add one more plug. The Expat Money Summit, which is happening in October. I will be on one of the VIP panels, and Mikkel will be a sponsor, I think, next month for Geopolitics and Empire. So people does that every year, so that's something great to check out. So, all right, folks, this was a lot of fun. Good to hear that y'all are doing well this summer, and yeah, until next time.